maybe it's a little chill in the air and people are hesitant. It's a beautiful fall morning. I guess some of us on Zoom as well are here in Manhattan, but it is a beautiful fall morning here, but it's still a little chilly.
Joseph, do you mind moving the mic a little bit closer to you, please? Incredible, thank you.
How's that?
How are you?
Here, can you just speak for me? Thank you.
Hello. Shabbat shalom.
Everyone online, can we hear? Awesome, great, thank you.
I was kind of snotty, though.
Hello.
Shabbat shalom.
Tony?
Let's see who's here. Beth and Bonnie and Brenda and Bruce, Eve, Leslie. Wonderful. Love, if you could tell me where you are joining us from. Maybe you can tell us in the chat where you are joining us from.
And God said, let there be light.
Yeah, so where is it? So, Vito, Chicago,
didn't catch up
Michigan.
yet.
Wonderful. Wow. It's so nice. We've got folks from the Midwest and here on the East Coast,
That is amazing.
around
Sometimes
the tri-state area. It's wonderful. Okay, so let's start with some prayer and then some I'll offer some grounding words for where we are this week, and then we'll get into the heart of it. So let us acknowledge the source of all blessing, who is also the source of the endless font of wisdom and inspiration that is the Torah, that we have the gift of studying together today. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. So I was sharing last night, I didn't mention by name, but I didn't say in the name of the Lubavitch Rebbe because it's a piece of Torah that we study together after Rosh Hashanah. This idea that Cheshvan is in some ways the culmination of Tishrei, that Cheshvan already the doorway of Parshat Bereshit, of the renewing the cycle of the Torah, is a path to integration, and Cheshvan is what makes Tishrei real. That there's no inherent value in peak experience if it's not integrated into our lives. And as we set ourselves into this month of Cheshvan, it is an opportunity to choose to integrate what we have experienced and set the course of our path, and use these days of ordinary time as paving stones for the path to radical transformation in small increments, one day at a time. And in some ways, this was the first full week of the year. I think it's not really the year hasn't fully started in some ways until we have 5 work days, six weekdays contiguous. And so here we are in the first Shabbat of ordinary time. I'll say a couple of more things about Cheshvan while we're at it. Since I am a JTS grad, I will mention that there is a false etymology of the word Mar Cheshvan, which is read as 2 words, Mar Cheshvan, which is read to mean bitter, Cheshvan. That it's a bitter month after the sweetness of the holidays. It's a bitter month when we don't have any festivals. But it appears to come from earlier Akkadian words that would mean Yerach Shamein, which could be translated as super full or super saturated moon or month, or 8th month. That if 7 represents fullness, 8 represents super saturation. Like a pregnant month, a month that is full of not only all of the fullness that we bring in from the 7th month, but also a time that is gestating the seeds that we have planted in these dark nights of Cheshvan. So I want to bless us as we start our first open book study of the month of Cheshvan, to think about how are we taking our inspiration into the year, into the realities of the turbulence that is the rises and the falls that are inevitable. How are we building rhythms and structures to allow ourselves to have meaningful, consistent growth and development in our spiritual lives? And so that brings us to teaching of the Slonimer Rebbe. So the Slonimer Rebbe was a 20th century Hasidic master. And for those who have it, it's up on the screen now, and we have it in front of us. But I'll ask us to stay to hold off from reading for just a moment. Slonimer Rebbe was a 20th century Rebbe of a Hasidic community in his lineage. He had many themes that he focused on, but I think the thing that makes him most distinct is that he wrote. Some Hasidic Rebbes spoke and had their writings I don't know how to describe it, written
Through their students.
I don't know if it's transcribed or if it was like, there were these folks that had photographic memory or close to it, who would write down what was spoken over Shabbos after Shabbos.
Cool.
A dear friend of mine whose yahrzeit is coming up, his first yahrzeit is coming up, Baruch Thaler. When he was a young boy, he was a young adult. He would do that for the Lubavitcher Rebbe. So Lubavitcher Rebbe wrote some things down, and some of what we have is just like that. Is that he had folks that was so. Rav Shalom Noach Barzovsky wrote very plainly. His ideas were deep and nuanced, but it was written in plain, almost modern Hebrew, with a real thought for the average reader to access, and so it's become a beloved text for many in many different communities, including in our Hasidic communities. So he talks about the flood of our parsha as being not so much a punishment, but as a consequence for the state of the world at the time, and the ark being a spiritual technology, it being both a physical solution for Noach and a paradigm, a perennial paradigm for how we as well address the turbulence of the floods that come, sometimes because of our own actions and sometimes because just of the imbalance of the circumstances in the world around us. And so we're going to explore this model of a teva, a selecha teva. Make yourself an ark as a mitzvah for all of us. So would somebody like to read for us in English? I would encourage, as always, if anybody would like to also to follow along in the Hebrew and see if there's any nuance. Certainly translation is always interpretation. And this is a translation by teacher Rabbi Jonathan Slater. But if anyone wants to follow along and see if there's other nuance that you're picking up in the original text, that's great too. So yes, please, who would like to read for us? At home and Zoom or here in the room. Just a reminder that if you would like to speak in the room, we will pass you. Please raise your hand, and before you speak, make sure that there's a microphone in front of you. Because without the microphone, our voices will not carry to Michigan and Ohio.
Oh, that's important.
Right? Okay. Would you like to read?
Sure.
This may bring it closer. We're on page 1.
Okay.
Number 1, introduction to the Netivot Shalom's writing on the ark.
Introduction. The Torah starts out with the story of the flood in all of its details, not because the Torah is a book of stories telling us what happened, but because it is a Torat Chayim, instruction for life. The flood did not come about as punishment, but because the corruption of the generation of the flood reached such an extent that the entire creation was corrupted, for all flesh had ruined its way upon the earth. Keep going? Yes.
Please.
God saw that the whole of creation was corrupt and could no longer sustain itself. The Midrash teaches that this generation had transgressed the 3 cardinal sins of idolatry, sexual immorality, and bloodshed. Creation had become thoroughly evil. But the Torah teaches us that even the corruption of the generation of the flood can be repaired through Noah's Ark. Just as the Ark functioned for the world, so too it functions within each person. The power to preserve a pure space amidst corruption. Even if a Jew sins, they can never reach such total destruction, for within them remains one pure corner untouched by corruption.
Wonderful.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Okay, I read it, so
Please.
it says here that how could God create something but not know what's going to happen?
So the simple answer to that question that is given by the rabbis is free will. The Torah God could have given the Torah to the angels who were infallible. But part of infallibility means that they do not have the ability to change and grow and choose. They have no use for the Torah, and they have no use for this world. So we are humans. First of all, we can develop and grow, and we can also choose to be in from the Kabbalists. We can choose to be in a loving relationship with the divine. So we are given the ability to take this, to destroy as well as to build. Any objections?
No objections, but questions, as in, the whole question of God's omnipotence and omniscience. Because if God is truly omniscient, then God would have foreseen, and maybe did foresee, whatever came down as a result of our set of choices.
Right. So that leads us into the question: is this punishment? Is this consequence? Is God acting with? Are we ascribing emotion to God and saying that God is acting rashly here, and that, to thinking about Arthur Waskow this week, Zichrono Lavracha, talk about God changed, God grew. With the covenant as a sign that God was developing too. For our purposes, what the Netivot Shalom is doing is creating a psychological read of this. Is saying that this is not about the what was I thinking? It's not so much about whether I lost my train of thought, but it becomes in this study of his, we're more thinking about it as how do we read these texts as the microcosm of the individual. That if we read the Torah as if each character is in some way can represent an aspect of our lived experience or psyche. Each story creates a paradigm for relating to the divine. It's slightly metaphorized, but also made very direct and tangible in our experience.
Could I just follow up real quick?
Yes.
Okay. Last week, God created the Garden of Eden, only to cast Adam and Eve out. Now this week is the flood, destroys everyone. I mean, this is my own opinion. God is not an idiot. He doesn't create garbage. Now, you can't create something by destroying everything else around it. It just, logically, it doesn't make sense. So, and again, I don't mean this, but there has to be a better answer. And I apologize, I'm not criticizing. There has to be something bigger, better.
Can I say?
Yes, let's pass you the microphone. And then we're going to move on because these are limited
Okay.
questions.
I will also interrupt and say that Jay and Beth have wanted to speak. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I see. Now I see the hands. Wonderful.
I'll be quick.
Okay. Yes.
I was just going to say,
Thank you. Sorry, I thought we were being recognized.
Please.
My apologies.
that's okay, I'll be very quick. I was just saying that I find it very hopeful, in contrast to Rob, because, and I often feel this way, that there's just tremendous empathy in the Torah, that, we all have such challenges, and the Torah is like, it's so okay to be, flawed in these deep ways. And there's always this hope, there's always this path. And in some ways, like, we're exactly in the same moment. We were just talking, this is Scott, my friend Scott. We were just talking about, the environmental disaster. Are we gonna sort of figure this out before there's an environmental disaster? And here, even like, there's a part where the earth is suffering, and there are floods like we've had today. And there's still hope, there's still survival, there's still a path forward, there's still a bridge to keep growing and connecting. And it would be just so ridiculous for God to have created Stepford, what's it called? Wives, right? Like where there's no growing, there's no, reaching for the divine, there's no love, there's no deep connection. I always feel like when I come with like whatever I'm annoyed about myself, you're totally allowed to be flawed and have challenges, and there's always a path forward,
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay,
You
Jane
didn't
and
satisfy
Beth.
Rob, though.
I didn't satisfy Ralph. No.
It's a second chapter.
What?
It's second chapter. You could have waited till the end of the book.
Jane,
I'm just waiting for the chatter to stop.
Sorry.
Okay. I was intrigued by where I thought you were sort of going at the end, which is the last part of this text, which talks about it almost as a not only individual but almost intrapsychic issue. And my question is, it seems to be saying that we as humans have a part of us that is never corrupted, and we must sort of somehow reach that peace or cultivate that peace. So A, I'm wondering if that's further developed, but B, build an ark to me is sort of external. It has a sense that this is something you don't have, that you need to create. And yet it would seem to be saying in the text that this is something we already have and somehow need to cultivate or privilege or something. So I'm wondering if there's any thoughts about that particular potential paradox.
that's wonderful. I appreciate it. I'm going to hold that because we're gonna come back to it. And see, Beth. Beth, love to hear.
Shabbat shalom.
Hi,
Shabbat shalom. Two things. If we look at the history of our planet and the evolution of life on Earth, there are many, 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 many evolutionary dead ends in the history of this planet we inhabit. So it doesn't surprise me at all that there are also dead ends in the story where God is not satisfied with what God has created. God wants to move on to something else. And that's a parallel with the physical nature of the world we inhabit that we know about scientifically. And the other comment I wanted to make with regard to the ark, we all are individually, psychically building arcs, at least we did when we were little, in establishing our own egos. And we've always had the capacity to do that. We're born as little human beings with the ability that we're going to grow into toddlers and we're going to start constructing a self around ourselves. Debarti.
It's beautiful. Asher Chaim, and then we'll come back to our text.
Thank you. First, a quick response to Rob in the room about the portrayal of God in Breshit. I don't think Breshit read Maimonides. So in Breshit, I don't think God is portrayed as being omniscient, but rather desperately seeking relationship and therefore not looking to the future of how this will turn out, but rather being in relationship with a humanity that is created as fallible so that God can be, as it were, elated or, as it were, disappointed. Also, just a little nitpick, but one of my favorite soapboxes, the English word ark is used for both the teva and the aron. The teva of Noach is very different from the aron, the Ark of the Covenant, which must never, ever, ever be opened, or the aron in which Joseph's bones were placed, never, never to be opened. The teva, whether it's this teva or the teva of Moses, the basket in the Nile, is supposed to be a temporary shelter from a storm that will not last forever. That's my little quibble with the quote that you brought from the Rebbe. that this teva is there when we need it, but not necessarily permanent place that we can seek refuge. Dibarti.
Beautiful.
Hi, Yosef. Before we continue, a question. Could we potentially, the mic that everyone else is using, like that Rob just used, could we switch that mic to the front of your face?
Sure.
Yeah, because that mic is working extremely well. Well, this is not your fault. This mic is being not so great, so yes.
Can I give you this so that we can pass this along? And it's okay. So to go back to what Jay
Thank you so much, yeah.
what Jay presented as a paradox, I would say is not exactly a paradox, but gets us into the crux of so much of Hasidic literature. On the one hand, there is a spark, what the Baal Shem Tov called a pintaliyid, that cannot be corrupted or extinguished. We have the ability. First of all, it is something that animates us, but we have the ability to connect to it at any moment. But sometimes we are. Thank you. Sometimes we are extremely disconnected from it.
Wait, sorry, Victor. Now can you move it a little bit away? I'm so sorry. It's like now it's a little bit too loud and echoey. Is original sound on? Or...
Okay, how's that? 1, 2, 1, 2.
How's it online for everybody? Mike is almost.
It's pretty much the
Could never
same.
win.
1, 2, 1, 2.
Okay. Yes.
1, 2, distorted. 1, 2, 1, 2.
A little loud.
Is the original sound on?
A little louder.
Just turn down.
I'm
Too
moving,
loud. It's too loud. It's
too loud. I'm moving it centimeters. Okay, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. While we're at it, well, Victor, while you're here, I'm going to test the other mic too, because it was. Yeah, if you can go over there and check the levels. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. How's this microphone here? How's this mic? 1, 2, 1, 2. How is this at home? More distorted. How about volume?
I mean, how bad is it?
It's pretty, I mean, I can hear it pretty well. But once again, I have found that the people online are better judges than I am. So,
Can you make out what I'm saying, folks at home?
Yes.
I think it sounds good. The people online, let your voice be heard. What do you think? Yes. Okay, I just got a good. We're just gonna trust in that. All right, everybody. Back to our regular programming. Thank you, everyone.
So okay, we're still in the introduction, and what we're saying is, number one, there is this point that we can reach at any time, and it is very difficult in our daily lives to actually be aware of that part of ourselves that is a continuum of the infinite one. The part of ourselves where we start with our nefesh, that is the embodied part of our soul, and then even the higher levels of soul that are expand beyond the limits of our physical body until until we expand into the great light. And that's not something that we are easily able to do, and so we create structures like we had our sukkah. That is something that we bring into ourselves as a paradigm. When we leave the sukkah, we have these different arcs that the Slonim Rebbe is going to talk about to allow us to bring it into our conscience and to develop ourselves over time. And Jay, I hope that answers your question. But let us continue to allow the Slonim Rebbe's voice to his message to play out. Who would like to read Roman numeral 2, the power of Shabbat and Torah? So just one more time, he is saying that we are creating, that we too face these great floods, and we are called to build arks. Thank you. Someone pass the microphone.
Two, the power of Shabbat and Torah. There are several ways in which our spiritual practice can be our personal Noah's Ark. One is Shabbat. Shabbat is like Noah's Ark, protecting us from the floodwaters. As the Arab Shabbat song says, on the holy Sabbath, the souls of Israel take shelter in the shadow of your wings. The power of Shabbat is that it can save us even from the corruption of the generation of the flood. For Shabbat is the dwelling place God desired within the lower realms, the source of connection between Israel and the divine. Even if one were to serve idols like the generation of Enosh, Shabbat saves them. That is the power of Shabbat. Torah is also a form of Noah's Ark. Once God gave us the Torah, we had some means of protection. As it says, I have created the Yetzer Hara, but I also have created the Torah as its antidote. To be effective, Torah study must engage us with the same energy and passion that once went towards sin. Noah's Ark had 3 levels, corresponding to the 3 stages of life: youth, middle age, and old age. Each stage has its own Yetzer, its own challenges. In youth, the urges of desire. In middle years, the twin pressures of desire and livelihood. And in old age, other challenges still. Our understanding also shifts with time. Torah sustains us through these stages, our personal Noah's Ark across life's seasons.
Beautiful. I'll start just one brief observation for this end part. You can take it or leave it the way that he is mapping onto the 3 levels of the ark, but just take notice of the way in which is mining all of it for ways in which we could bring this model more vividly to life as a model for our own practice. What does it do? What does it accomplish to think of Shabbat and Torah as arcs? But you to think about that, and also if we can go back to the source sheet number 3 and look at the questions. Just a moment. You'll see 3 questions here, and you can read them to yourselves, and then we'll discuss. Think about it for a moment, and we will come together to discuss this section. Jay.
I just wanted to say, maybe I didn't misstate it. The response you gave, and this is making things even worse for me. And
Okay,
how
good.
do I mean that? First, I'm still searching for whether the original text points to things that we all have inside ourselves as resources that we can reach out to, and it would seem that the resources that are given are external to us that we must bring in. But Kal v'chomer, what are the 2, Shabbat and Torah, which we're reading Noach with the Noahic covenant, which is universal, and these ways of surviving turbulence are not universal, they're specific to Jews, which even seems to say more, no, this is not a human quality that we all have, that space that's never corrupted. That was my original question. The original text would seem to indicate the possibility of a space within people that is never corrupted. Okay, And so far, what we've got is external and only available to Jews.
Okay, 2 points. First of all, yes, the Netivot Shalom is very particularistic, as are all of the classical Hasidic masters. As neo-Hasidic community and contemporary readers, that is something that we have to be very clear about and choose to say this is that if this we believe that these truths are universal, and we can, and there are tools that can, well, these that are accessible to all, and also that everyone has a spark of the divine within that animates them. And that is going to be a challenge anytime we read these texts. And thank you for raising that. But I think that second point, that if you look at any contemplative tradition, we have to apply structures from the outside in order to reach our inner faculties. We have to create.
What about things like meditation or things that are specifically, focused on internal attributes and internal processes and internal possibilities?
And you think that Shabbat and Torah are not focused on internal faculties? It's the same thing. You have to set yourself a practice. You have to create something that is set aside. You have to have your makom kavua, you have your zafu, you have your sangha, you have to have some external structure to be able to cultivate the internal. And I think that's the same thing that we're talking about with Shabbat and Torah. Once you are step into those structures of Shabbat and Torah, it's all about the internal faculties that allow us to cultivate and connect to that spark within. Is it not?
Are you saying you should get off Zoom and come to shul?
Saying you should get onto Zoom and study Torah on Shabbat.
What's Pintala mean?
Pintala means the little spark of the little that spark. And again, it's Pintala Yid. It is very particularistic. But we are choosing to say that this is our belief is that is true as well for all of humanity. And we're talking about we without getting into chosenness and all that, we have our path as the Jewish people. Yes. We have the ways in which we are distinct, and our lineage, our received tradition, our wisdom, our symbology, all of that is distinct to us. And so we are talking about the ways that we as Jews can connect to that part of ourselves that is accessible for all humanity. Yes?
So I'm thinking about, I would like to move the quotes from the ark, like a protective ark, to move those quotes around, protect it, because I just feel like that's too limiting a term for Shabbat and Torah.
Okay, and so how are you understanding Shabbat and Torah to begin with, and in what way then is it limiting?
I guess if we're talking about it in the context of the first reading, the introduction, where we think of the ark, and I really like the idea that it sort of helps us get to the next place. It's this transitional vehicle. To use Shabbat and Torah the same way, like it's what you make of it individually and collectively, and it shapes and changes over time, just like we've been given this ark and this, we used in different ways over the generations. So it just seems protective seems too maybe our present day mindset. We need protections for different physical and spiritual reasons.
So is there another adjective that you would replace it with? If we're thinking about this idea of the floods and the ark as a way to allow us to get through it.
Be something more open and not positive, but where you have more ownership. Like this seems paternalistic in a way to be protected. I don't need protection. I need support, strength, faith. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Would it change it for you if it was? Would it change it for you if it was not the impermanence of the ark?
I like the impermanence of it.
Right, but I just didn't know if that was featuring into what you were saying, because you said that it's a temporary, transient thing.
Right, but somehow protective seems like the whole point is to be vulnerable. So why do I need protection if I'm vulnerable? That means I'm taking that leap of faith. So that should just open more possibilities.
And the reason I asked that question is because I didn't know if the ark was maybe not to be taken as impermanent, but like maybe all of life is the ark, and maybe that was an exercise in extreme living in the present moment, and we built the ark because it's everything that has happened, will happen, and is right now. That was where I got to.
Okay, we're gonna pause for a second and go and hear from. Hold on, we're gonna hear from Richard, and then we're gonna hear from Richard and Adel and Sharon.
Thank you, Rabbi. My answer to number 3 and 4, to make the Torah study a protective ark, would be to use analogy and metaphor and creative construction of the Hebrew words, make it make the Torah teaching universally applicable to my life in the here and now. So one example is what the Baal Shem Tov did with the word teva for ark. He said that hints at the word mela, word, and therefore the verse, make a window in the teva, he interpreted that for all time as imbue every word that comes out of your mouth with light. So he transformed, just with that Hebrew connection, he transformed an ark to the words that come out of our mouth with heart and light. And
Yes.
So that's the way Torah is meaningful to me in that way.
Adel, thank you, Richard.
Good Shabbos, everyone.
Good Shabbos.
The Lubavitcher Rebbe calls prayer the ark or an ark, and in Yiddish, pintele means little dot. Of course, it does refer to the spark. Thank you.
Thank you. Sharon.
Okay, Shabbat Shalom. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to just state the obvious, or what is the obvious for me. Since October 7th, I have felt every aspect of Jewish practice and life, from study to Shabbat, to the holidays. I mean, in a sense, we're all living under a sukkah, because I feel like there's been such a flood of hatred and anti-Semitism in particular since October 7th. So to me, it is a perfect analogy. It's not, I don't even know if I'd say it's a metaphor. It's just almost an analogy between our current state, or at least my experience of our current state. Even here in the middle of Manhattan, I feel it because I'm near Columbia, the anti-Semitism, it just is all around. And every time I experience Shabbat, every time I do Jewish learning, anything, I feel that sense of protection. Dibarti.
Thank you. So maybe we'll try to, the drash is too esoteric. I think that Sharon is bringing it really home for us. And to talk about protection and vulnerability. We need protections in order to cultivate vulnerability. Right? The sukkah is both a protective space and a space of vulnerability. By the time I took my sukkah down, half the schach was off. It was definitely not full of right angles, and yet it's a space of I think that lives right on the two sides of that coin. But yeah, maybe we'll get off the page for a moment and say, are there things in your own life, in your Jewish life, general spiritual life, or otherwise, that serve as an ark for you, that's something that can help to provide that level of structure, of protection, that buffer that allows us to feel into that space of that gentle, vulnerable space where we can start to sense to sense that spark, the ways in which our soul bodies can start to once again discern the ever presence of that. Sharon talked about all of the Jewish practices that she has been doing since October 7th, and I'm sorry, it looked like someone who is, I don't see the hand. I see a hand up, but for some reason it's not here on
Brenda,
the
yeah.
queue. Yes, Brenda.
So I see this as not so much a Jewish story as a universal, going back to what Jay questioned. And I just, when a flood comes, a hurricane comes, a earthquake comes, a war comes, all this, out of destruction, we have to find a way to rebuild and start over. And we do that in whatever tools we have, symbolic of the ark, but also in our personal lives, where something happens which seems like our world is over, somebody dies, an illness or whatever, a divorce. We have to start over again with whatever we have and whatever tools we can find. So it may be, if you're religious, it might be your religious structures, but it might be something else. It might be a community of friends. It might be whatever, whatever tools the individual needs or the society needs when destruction inevitably comes, because both in the outer world and our inner world, it is inevitable.
So Brenda, thank you for that. I'd like to push you a little bit and ask if you can share anything from your own lived experience, either personally or collectively, that has been that for you.
Well, yeah, sure. Several. I mean, I've had divorce in my life. I've had a death in my life. I've had an accident, which I'm somewhat disabled from, and each time I had to start anew, in a sense, finding inner resources and help from the outside world. Like for right now, I live in an assisted living, which is my art, so to speak, and I've found that each challenge, each starting over, has helped me to grow and to learn more than if I had not had each of those challenges. So I'm really grateful for each and every one, both for helping my inner resources and the realization that there is outer resources and help in every way. I mean, family, friends, and all kinds of resources, that help you to rebuild.
That's really inspiring. Thank you so much for sharing, Brenda.
Thank
Marilyn.
you.
Marilyn?
Yes. Just one second. Unmute.
You're good. You're good.
Yes. Okay. Hi, good Shabbos. I was thinking actually about the ark that it's not so much what the ark is, but the ark for me is hope. So in other words, are you Noah that's going to enter the ark, or Noah's wife and Nama, I guess? Or are you one of the people that are going to drown, like you're going down in the water, to know that there is a possibility is, I think, what's being offered by the Ark.
Beautiful, beautiful. I love that. But I would say that to put it back into the Slonimer's frame, hope has to be a practical action. Aseh lecha teva. What are we doing to build the ark of hope? How are we cultivating that stance, that hope can, who was it that I read, who was it, 2017, that wrote about hope is like hope is something that we can wield as an axe. Hope as a right, what are we doing to build that hope so that it is something that we can turn to regularly? Yes.
Such a beautiful conversation, and it just makes me think about how much Romemu in particular is an ark for me, because I grew up fundamentalist atheist. My mother was like a fundamentalist, like don't say a blessed and
Orthodox
atheist, yeah. And I've really come to this spiritual path, and I experienced Romemu as so distinct, like from other synagogues. Sometimes there's no like spiritual aspect to it, and I feel like on Shabbat, like stopping and coming to synagogue, and almost necessarily being so vulnerable and so bare, in prayer. Like I almost feel like Romemu brings people who want to be vulnerable in a way that a lot of synagogues don't create that space. And stopping, like I don't grade papers, and in terms of what Sharon was saying, I'm an academic, so there's a lot of anti-Semitism there, and I've been dealing with that since. And it's just beautiful to be in a community of people who experience that. There's a shared, I'm getting emotional, like a shared reality that I don't feel elsewhere. And I often feel that way, like if I'm with Romemu people elsewhere, like I feel like it's okay to be vulnerable, to be flawed. There's something really special. And another emotion, about Romemu is an ark. Of the whole week, it helps me through the whole week.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. Yes. We'll just speak into the mic.
When you said build yourself an ark, aseh lecha teva, is there something about the distinction with a non-use of tivneh lecha and using aseh, which maybe universalizes?
Well, so aseh is first of all is the lashon tzivui, so it would be the equivalent to like b'nei lecha, right? So it's interesting, but yes, it's not a. It's interesting. B'nei would be build. Aseh is make or enact. Make it your reality. So I think that is why does for a classical commentary. There might be different ways of talking about it. I think that would, for the Hasidic reader, would be wonderful fodder for thinking just that, of like this. It's an action, but that's a good question. It's a good question. I'm just going to take a quick glance. Clock and at our sheet here.
Sorry, where are we? Which source are we on? Yeah.
I'm pausing to decide whether we're going to continue on the sheet, and if so, where in the time that we have. Right, so just to say, number 3, talking about the power of spiritual community and the ability that we have to basically to connect to our best self when we are in a community of aligned folks that that are also intentional seekers that share our value system. And maybe we'll turn to source 4, which is on page 5. Who would like to read for us at home, on Zoom, or here in the room? Or we can all take a moment. Why don't we all take a moment and read this to ourselves and talk? Of course, this brings us back to what Jay was saying. I think that after he sets up the system of saying that the ark is all of these externals, we come back to the internal ark. Once again, I cannot. Who is raising when it's?
Amy, yeah.
Thank you, Amy.
Hi. Good morning. Shabbat shalom. I looked up the definition of ark, and the definition of ark gives the examples of Noah, Moses, and the ark that's in every temple.
Mm-hmm.
And I apologize if you've covered this already, but the ark has no form of propulsion, and it has no rudder to point in a direction. It doesn't have, like your canoe has a point on both ends, but an ark does not. Neither did Moses's ark or Noah's ark. So basically, the ark is you're at the mercy of God, where he wants you to go, and God's judgment of where he wants you to go. And that's what's true also of the Ark of the Covenant that's in the sanctuary, I think.
Beautiful. So I think as who was it that spoke? Asher Chaim was inviting us to make the distinction between the two types of arks. That there is a teva, which is both the ark of Noah and the ark of Moses, or I would say the ark of Miriam. Moses was the rider, was the passenger, but Miriam was the one who dared to hope and build. Those were both structures that were built, rudderless structures that were built and for protection in water, but the Aron, which is both the Ark of the Covenant, which then is remembered through our physical structures in our synagogues, sanctuaries, is a different ark. I don't know enough about the source of the English word ark, and whoever decided to apply that to both of these to speak to that, but yes, but I appreciate this idea on the one hand that it is that they were putting our trust and faith in God to guide us, and at the same time we are taking control of the things that we can to guide the path of our spiritual growth, to allow us to then maybe enter into that stance of surrender to the divine. Okay, I'll just say I am the sole clergy upstairs, so I will go upstairs in 7 minutes. But so let's see if there are any, I want us to focus specifically on how we can, whatever you think of the Nativot Shalom's read of this, let's move beyond to how we can think about taking the lessons of Noah's Ark into our own spiritual lives as a model for how to go through these next months of the sacred in ordinary time, to go through the inevitable moments of upheaval, to have some sort of constant in our path of spiritual growth and creating enough space for connecting to that inner spark.
Rabbi Joseph, just giving a heads up, Thomas and Miriam have their hands raised on mine.
Wonderful. Thomas.
Hello, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
I'm so sorry I couldn't join you in person this morning. I did not jump onto my ark on time. I just can't resist addressing a question about why the ark is the ark is the ark, in English anyway. It's from the King James Bible, and the ark is actually an Old English word, and it means anything that is enclosed or hidden. So even a coffin was called an ark, a dark box, something where secrets or possibilities were held. And you can hear it in the word arcane or arcana, which are like the mystical things, or the arcanum, which is a document of mystical teachings. And so ark always has a hint of magic and always has a hint of hiddenness, for better or for worse. It's that also which is hidden. And just to supplement that, I love the two arcs, especially because I think it's maybe we even talked about last year at the same point in the cycle. Both the Ark of the Covenant and the vessel that protects Noah are described in incredible detail. The proportions, the plans, the materials. It's not just that you're given an ark, you're given all the arcana about the ark, all the hidden details, all the instructions are revealed. It's radically specific, which I think is important. And then also important that both of these boxes, both of these arcs of hidden things are not just vessels, but vehicles. They are really on the move. And so they're designed not for retreat, but for advance as well. Designed to go forth, to open up. What you do with something hidden is reveal it. Arcs are made to be opened. And I think that was the wisdom of the 16th century translators who introduced that slightly strange English word as the common word for all of these things. All right, goodbye to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yes, just another reminder that all translation is interpretation, and that's wonderful. And also to try to go back with whatever resources we need to try to encounter our sacred Hebrew texts directly, unmediated, so that we can understand what choices translators are making. Okay, Jay, and then we'll see if anyone else wants to, if we can.
Sorry, Miriam had her hand up first.
Sorry, I don't, for some reason, Miriam is not showing up as raised hand, so yes, Miriam.
Okay, yeah.
Miriam, please.
Hi, thank you. I just wanted to, there's so much to say, but I think the only piece I want to say is Kaddish as an ark. Today's the last day until my dad's yard site, so today is the last day for me saying Kaddish here, and 3 times a day for my father, and somehow that place of holding and speaking, and others online or in community when people are in person, and also that it will change, that sense of arcs where, in some sense, maybe we're looking for stability. What can we always count on? But then maybe the place where arcs are moving us forward somewhere else.
It's beautiful. First of all, Miriam, I want to offer you our virtual hug, and hope that Yehi Zichro Baruch, that the memory of your father should be for memory. I know that when I stopped saying Kaddish for my father, there's something very strange about stopping. I assume you said until the Yortzeit, so I assume that you are of the common Ashkenazi custom of stopping after 11 months, and there's nothing to mark the end of Kaddish. It just stops, and that can be very strange. So I hope that this Torah study can offer an opportunity for you to mark the stepping out of that ark and continue to find comfort in the Yortzeits and all of the ways in which you continue your father's memory.
Can I say his name here?
Yes.
Can I say his name, please?
Please.
His name is Sherwood Samuel Sandweiss, Shmer Shlemi Sandweiss Ben Yosef Asera. And I've been counting every day. This is 328 days. It's the 47th week. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think we'll take one final comment from Jay before we wrap up.
It feels like we've come full circle. I think the Nitzotz Katan resolves my initial query. And to answer your question, I think what we can do is recognize the Nitzotz Katan in other people, because that is the fastest path to recognizing our own Nitzotz Katan, because we need our own Nitzotz Katan to do that.
Beautiful, and I think that is exactly how Rabbi Nachman of Breslov speaks of. It's not explicit, but it's implicit in how he talks about this same idea. So I want to I'll end with some words of bracha, as we started with words of bracha, that you can find deep sustenance from the Torah that we study together, from this sacred community, and that through the ways in which the Torah and Tefillah and Shabbat and community opens us up, that we can find openings anywhere we walk in our lives that can provide a connection, an immediate pathway into connection with that spark, and that we should, as Jay said, be able to see the spark in others, and that it can awaken our sense of that spark in ourselves, and vice versa, that every opening to that spark in ourselves should be also an opening to more readily seeing that spark in others, especially those who are different from us. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Thank you, everyone who joined us from afar and from near.
Separated.